Hey everybody, Raiden Emery Photography here with another Photoshop tutorial. Since you guys were asking about the way I did my edit on that last photo that I posted, so let's get right into it. Let's see here. So we're going to start with frequency separation, and the way I'm going to do that, since we're not going to use an action today, you guys actually want to learn exactly how to do this. So you're going to duplicate the layer twice. Control J. I'm going to hit that twice. Boom. I'm going to rename this low, and I'm going to rename this high. And this is going to separate the texture from the tones. The tones are going to be the low layer. The texture is going to be the high layer. And now we're going to make each one of these become that. So we're going to start with the low layer. We're going to make that into our tones layer. Most people use Gaussian Blur for this, but I have a slightly different way, so keep an eye out. Filter. You're going to go up there to filter, and then you're going to go to noise and dust and scratches. That's a little different. So here we go. Boom. I actually forgot real quick. Let me turn this layer off. That way you can see the preview of what's actually happening. So filter, noise, dust and scratches. Now, normally with Gaussian Blur, the higher you go, it starts to kind of like blend things together. But with dust and scratches, it starts looking a little more like an oil painting in a weird way. But you can actually push this a lot further than you can Gaussian Blur, because right around here, 10 or 11, maybe even 12. If I did this with Gaussian Blur, the color right here in the eye would start to kind of blur over into this white area. So if I accidentally just, selected this and blurred it later with frequency separation, that color would actually expand onto the white, and you'd actually be able to see that later. So that's not good. And I'd have to, go down a little bit with the Gaussian Blur, which would mean that I would start seeing texture and little things in the skin that I didn't want to see earlier. So I like dust and scratches because I can push it a little further and get a little more out of it. So here we go. I'm going to set this number to 11 because that looks pretty good. I can still see the edges of everything important, like eyes, eyebrows, nose, nostrils, mouth, things like that. But all the detail on the skin, pores, blemishes, and little changes in color are pretty much gone. Or really sharp changes in color are pretty much gone. So I'm going to remember this number right here, 11, for later. If yours is different, write it down. Remember that because you're going to need it. So 11 for me. You hit OK, and now that layer is nice and blurry, and that's going to be our tones layer. Then you're going to turn the high layer back on. You're going to select it, go to Image, Apply Image, and this little dialog box should pop up. Sorry if that's moving around too much. So here's the Apply Image dialog box. You're going to go to Layer first. You're going to select your low layer, which you named, so it's easier to find. That way it doesn't say like Layer Copy 1 or something like that. It's going to say Low. Boom. So we're taking information from the low layer. We're inverting it. Check that little box right there. And changing the blending mode to Add. So what that's doing is it's taking whatever the low layer didn't have and adding in the texture, which is what it didn't have, in a different layer. This scale should automatically be 2. If it's not, make sure it is. So you just hit right there, hit 2 on your keyboard, and hit OK. The offset should be 0. I don't know why I didn't mention that, but yeah. Now you have your high and your low. Set the high layer right here on the blending mode to linear light right there. And what that does is it gets rid of all that gray stuff and focuses just on the dark parts of that layer. So if we look at it right here, just the texture and details goes through the linear light blending mode onto this low layer, making it look exactly the same as your original image. So if we group these two together, call this frequency sep, because I don't feel like typing out the rest of that. Bam. Frequency sep. If we get rid of that, no difference whatsoever. We've pretty much just duplicated the image, but we separated the texture from the tones. And that's exactly what you want. So now you're free to work on the color and things like that here, and fixing texture and any problems like that up here. Now, let's get to work on the low layer. The way you work on the low layer is you grab your lasso tool, hit L on your keyboard. It's a nice little shortcut there. That way you don't have to go up here and hit that thing every single time. You are going to set your feather so that the edge of whatever you change isn't super noticeable. Another tip: the closer your crop is, like the closer the camera is to the subject. So right here we're in like a really tight headshot. The more feather you want, somewhere between 5 and 15 is the limit really, top and bottom. If you're further away, like a full body shot, you want to set it to something like 5, because honestly you're not really seeing that many details in the face and skin from that far away anyway, so you're not going to notice a little sharp line here and there. Also, if it's feathered somewhere like 15 on a full body shot, it's also going to blur outside of the face because the face is going to be smaller in the overall image. So back again, we're on a headshot. We're a little super close, so I'm going to set it to 12. 12 looks good. And the way you can check that is you make a little selection real quick, hit Q on your keyboard for the quick mask, and you should see a nice soft edge right around this. That means that whatever blur you add in here is going to slowly fade away out to the edge of your selection. So hit Q again, bring it back. Control D gets rid of the selection. Not really important, but hey, it's good to know all your hotkeys. All right, so let's get to work. And what you want to look for is really drastic changes in color and things like little veins and random, like really noticeable spots on her face. So shadows and sharp shadows and things like that. So right here, there's a really drastic change from light to dark. So we're going to go right around here and select all of that. You don't have to be really accurate or anything. And go to filter and down to blur. And now we're going to use the Gaussian blur instead of earlier. And you remember that number we set earlier? Mine was 11, so I'm going to stay right here on 11. Normally it would be like down there or something. You can just slide that right back up. Mine is 11. Boom. And then you're going to hit OK. Remember, it's whatever number you set on your image earlier. If you wrote it down, you can put it in now. So hit OK. Boom. And now we've just blended that spot in a little bit. And you're like, that wasn't really much of a noticeable change, but that's okay. We take that off. Now you can see it's kind of a big difference. You know what I mean? It smoothed that line out, so it's not super noticeable anymore. If you do want to add a little more, you can also just go right back in, select that same spot, and you'll notice instead of having to go up here over and over and just take all day, so going through Gaussian blur over and over, you'll notice Photoshop actually saves it right here, exactly what you did with the exact radius and everything that you set, and gives you a little hotkey for it, Control F, and I think on Apple that's Command F. So now I can just select, hit Control F, and boom, I just did it again. Now I can go through my whole image, and I'll just find all the little drastic changes. No need to be super OCD about the shape. Just select and blur. Select, Control F, blur. These little shadows right here, I want to soften them up so they're not super sharp and drastic. This change in light to dark, again, boom. Not a super drastic difference, but you'll see it in a bit. Remember, changes from light to dark are exactly what you want to be looking for. You notice these little mustache hairs. We're going to fix those in a little bit, so I'm not going to worry about them right now. Bam. This dark spot right here under her chin. Hope I tried to move it. Didn't work. Boom. Soften this edge right here of the shadow so it just transitions nice and smooth now. Now let's see a quick little before and after. Big difference. Right, let's finish up right here. Boom. Boom. Soften up that. If she had any little veins and things in her eye, this sort of helps, but you're going to need to go into a little bit more detail if you want to get rid of them. And if this message ever pops up, it's not really saying anything like, oh, it's not going to select anything. It's actually telling you that anything below 50% visibility is going to be selected, but you're not going to see the little marching ant circle around it anymore. So right now, there is a selection there exactly where I drew the circle, but you can't see it. So I hit Control F, boom, and it still works. Nothing to worry about. The only sad part is it's going to pop up over and over and over again every time I make a circle that small. Photoshop needs to add a little don't show me this again thing. That way I know. And I never have to think about it ever again. Alright, here, here, right here, there, and right there. Okay. Now let's back away again. Let's see the before and after. Boom, bring it a little closer. That way you guys can really get a good look. Before, after. Before, after. Nice drastic change, isn't it? It didn't seem like it while you're doing it, but this is the fruits of the effort. Right here. Get one more right there. Not super noticeable, but it's doing what it needs to do. There we go. Nice smooth skin. Alright, now another thing you're going to notice is looking at this image in particular, there's a weird like green cast on her skin right here along her lip a little bit, like all around the bottom edge of her mouth, like she was eating grass or something, and a little bit of a blue cast right here from that vein that we blended in. And if you want to fix things like that, the lasso tool and the Gaussian blur is not going to be accurate enough. It's going to be, you know, kind of just a quick way of doing it. It handles most things, but not all. If you want to get really specific with little things like that, you want to make another layer right here in between the high and the low. So you click your low layer, then you go down here to new layer. It's going to be a new empty layer. We're going to call this the brush tones. And just as a reminder, you want to set your flow to, let me go like this. You're going to set your flow to 3%. Boom. So now we're going to grab our brush, exactly like the layer says, and set the opacity to 100. And anytime you hit the numbers while the brush tool is out, is going to set your opacity. If you hold shift and hit a number, you'll notice the flow changes. So again, without shift, you just hit 1, you get 10%. If you hit 0, 1, you get 1%. So to bring it to 100 again, you hit 0 by itself. And then if you want to affect the flow, you want to change, let's say we're going to 3% like we're supposed to, shift 0, 3. And you get flow 3%. Nice little hotkeys there to help you move things along instead of having to go up here and fiddle with it. I know with the tablet it gets a little, it gets a little wonky. Sometimes it doesn't want to go where you put it, like right there. Trying to get it down. I want 3, back and forth, really annoying. So I can just hit shift 0, 3 and I have 3% of flow. So now we're going to hold Alt on the brush and pick the skin color, the part of the skin. You know, right there is that weird kind of green color. Right here is kind of that weird green color. It's like greenish brown. Uh, so we're gonna pick this right here. Oh, it's actually going right up the side of her cheek right there, right on the smiling line. So we're gonna pick right here. Nice even tone. Make the brush a little bit bigger. All right. And now you're just gonna lightly brush. Try not to stay in the same spot too long. Remember, it's flow, not opacity. If you want a little more control, you can also set the opacity to maybe 50%. I'm going to leave mine at 100 because I'm used to it. But make sure if you're changing the opacity, do not lift your pen. Because if you lift your pen, the next time you put it down, you're going to be adding another 50% or 60% or whatever you set it to over what you already did. And it's not necessarily going to blend in too well. So you have to be really, really careful with that. Now, here's a little before and after. There's that green stuff, and boom, it's gone. So make sure you select somewhere near where you're actually changing colors, because tones change from shadows and things like that. So you want to pick somewhere nearby so that the color doesn't change too drastically. Right here, get rid of that. That looks good. Boom, 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 boom. Blend that up into there a little bit. Nice. And now you see right here, it's not too super noticeable, but this changed from light to dark to light again right here in the middle of this highlight. We don't want that, so we're going to click this light spot and just blend that right on in there. Boom. Actually, you know what? That looks a little wonky in itself, so I'm just going to grab this neutral kind of color right here near the highlight. Make my brush a little bit bigger and just go right over it and bring it down to a nice natural color. Boom. See how everything just evens out? 1 minute it's like grass stains and random bumps in the highlights, and now it's a nice even skin tone all the way throughout. Right here where this vein was, we forgot. So let's grab this kind of shaded skin tone right here around the nose. Shrink the brush a little bit. Another quick way to shrink the brush is or to change your brush size if you aren't using the bracket keys on your keyboard, is you hold the Alt key, you right click, hold it down, and you'll notice right now it's showing the eyedropper tool. But if I press down, or not press down, that's on a tablet, but if I right click and move my mouse from left to right, I'm changing the brush size. If I go up and down, you'll notice the hardness of the brush is changing. That's a quick little way to change your size and hardness. Your opacity you can change with the hotkeys on your keyboard or up top. So I'm going to go down to right about here. Pick this color right there on the side of the nose. Just go lightly over there. That looks pretty good. A little before and after there. Nice. Okay. I'm going to grab this color lightly. Let me shrink it down a little bit. I don't want to get into the whites of her eyes too much. And just lightly pass right there. There we go. And again right here. Lightly pass. Just to even things out. Nice. Nice. That looks good. Dun, 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 dun. Ooh, right here. This little spot. I want this shady color right about there. Just to get rid of that weird kind of orange patch in her shadow under her lip. Boom. Go. I can lighten it up a little bit like that too. Boom, boom, boom. Nice. There we go. The weird grass grazing patch is gone. And all the tones are nice and even. So let's go from up here and see a quick before and after. There's before. Ooh, that looks a little extreme now, doesn't it? And here's after. Real quick again. Before, after. Before, after. Big difference. Really, really subtle while you're doing it. But when you go back and look at it, it's huge difference in skin tones. And then from there you can just move on to color toning your image however you want, or maybe a little dodge and burn and things like that. I might do a separate tutorial for that, but or actually let's see if we can do it real quick. I'm actually just gonna color tone it. I'm not gonna dodge and burn it too much. The lighting looks pretty good here, so I'm not gonna touch it. But oh, one last thing, if you want to do a little more blemish removal and stuff, you just make another empty layer. Maybe try the healing brush. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. Right, get rid of that little speck there, and this little speck here. This one right there. That one right there. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Good. And then that one, that one, that one. Okay. Just a little bit of OCD there, excuse me. Okay, and then this is where you would zoom in that detail work. Now, instead of doing it here, I could, just go in and go like this with the blemish removal tool and do each one of these, but you'll notice I'm getting rid of a little bit of the texture every time I do that. So instead of doing that, I'm going to leave that one actually. I'm going to go down here into the frequency separation again. I'm going to go to this high layer. I'm going to take off. Let me zoom out real quick. Undo that real quick, that little dot. I'm going to take off the sample all layers. That way it's only sampling from the layer that I'm on. And let me see what this does real quick, because I forget which brush it is I'm supposed to use for this. But let's see. Boom. Yes. So right there, it's getting rid of textures without affecting the colors and tones. So I can go right ahead and just delete little blemishes and hairs and things like that without having to do too much. Let's change the blending mode to lighten. That way, gets rid of all the little hairs for me. A little neater. Just like so. Might have to zoom out a little bit. These aren't super obvious. Another thing I could probably do is, to make it even easier on myself, let's see if the patch tool works. Like this. And just move it out. Nah, I don't really like the patch tool. Some people love the patch tool. I really just can't really appreciate it all that much. Even on small things, it just leaves those kind of a hard edge, and I don't really like it. So, I'm just going to leave it like that. I think I can go back to the spot healing brush real quick. I think that's it for really noticeable stuff. Get that little hair there. And then we can go back to this low layer. lasso tool, go like this, and Control F. Boom. Now those nice dark hairs are not as noticeable. Sweet. So this is pretty much done. You can shrink that. Another thing I like to do is right click the eyeball there and I can select a color for my frequency separation. I'm going to throw this in there with it. There we go. Now let me do a little bit of color toning just to show somewhat what I do. I don't touch the midtones too much. You can. It does look kind of nice. Sometimes it goes a little too far. You know what I mean? Artistically, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Like, this looks great. But if you want to stay a little more natural, you usually want to stay away from the midtones a little bit. Maybe a little bit there, just to get the background to be a little bluer. Then I'm going to go to shadows. Really subtle. Maybe 4, 5-ish. Use my mouse. Tablet's getting a little wonky again. So 4. A little touch of red, just really super subtle. Just 1 is fine. If I go too far with that, it's going to be way too noticeable. Let's go. I added blue in the shadows, so a complementary color in the highlights helps a lot. Let's do 6 right about there, just to warm her up a little bit. Let's see a little before and after there. Yeah, I got rid of the greenish tint on everything. Sweet. Awesome. That should be good. I don't think I really want to push for anything else on here. Let's go back to 6. The midtone. Down to 15 again. That should be good. Yeah, nice and subtle. That's how I like it. Alright. Boom. And that's about it. So a nice, quick, speedy edit. I'm not sure exactly how long I've been recording, but oh yeah, just about like 25 minutes just to edit that, and then you can do it in around 15 if you're not sitting here rambling and explaining things. If you're just trying to get it done, probably 15 minutes per image, and you can get a nice natural look like this. And that's about it. So that's what you guys wanted to know. Hopefully that helps. Let me know in the comments if I went too fast or anything like that, because I'm not used to really doing tutorials. So any little CC creative criticism on how to do the video helps. Don't tear me up too much. But hope you guys enjoyed that and hope it helps with your editing. Have a good one.